So we don't know a crazy lot about the DCU just yet. We know that Creature Commandos is going to be starting this year. We know that Waller and Peacemaker Season 2 have their scripts pretty much done, with Peacemaker Season 2's script being finished pretty recently. We know that the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow script is done and that it was so good that the project got completely fast-tracked. And we know that the script is based on Woman of Tomorrow and that Millie Alcock will be playing the main character, Kara. We know that rumours about there being a Justice League film at the end of the first chapter and that the Justice League film will be very much based on the New Frontier comic. We know that Superman and the Authority is apparently going to be playing somewhat of a role, since we've got members of the Authority appearing in Superman Legacy and we have an Authority movie coming, and that comic might be pretty important. We also know that they're kind of digging into stuff like the Justice League run from the late 80s with Maxwell Lord, Guy Gardner, Booster Gold, characters like that. The Maxwell Lord in there being a lot like kind of more of a businessman and less like the villain that he becomes in the early 2000s. And besides this, we know that Superman Legacy will be filming next month, and they started a table read as of last night. So not a crazy amount. The rumors keep piling up. With Superman Legacy starting filming next month, we're bound to start seeing some things and start hearing some things. Honestly, if I was a betting man, I would say that we will probably get our first look at the costume properly early next month. And the reason I think this is because once they're filming, it's going to be a lot harder to control what leaks and what gets out to the public. And I think that at some point somebody's going to snap a picture of David in the Superman suit during filming, and it's going to leak online everywhere, and there's going to be a legitimate blurry look at the costume out there. I think it'll be impossible to hide that once they start filming. So I think James Gunn probably knows this, and he'll probably try and release some kind of special tease of the suit before then. It's something like the way they revealed the Batman costume for the Batman 2022 movie would be really, really cool. That was a really interesting way to reveal that, and I think something like that would really play up that this film is an event. Also, because DC just kind of has a bad history with their costumes leaking online. The Arrowverse had this problem where every time a new superhero would be joining the Arrowverse, we'd see the suit 4 or 5 months before they wanted us to, because people would take pictures on set. Which is kind of annoying. I wish we could get more official looks at the suit rather than getting blurry images of them. But the main reason that I'm making this video is because during the table read, the logo that they're using is the Kingdom Come Superman logo on the names for the table read. This is really interesting for a couple of reasons. I want to preface this that this does not mean it is the logo for the film, or this might not mean anything, the fact that they're using it for a table read, because people on Twitter straight away are saying this is the logo for the film, or they're adapting Kingdom Come or something like that. Just because they're using this logo on the table read doesn't mean really anything. It could just mean that it's much easier for them to go for this right now. Maybe the official logo still isn't completely finished. They're still making alterations to what the suit will be, because they've still got like 2 or 3 weeks before they film. So they'll probably be working on that suit and working on the logo right up until when they start filming. And things change in film production all the time. So just because the logo is on the table read doesn't definitively mean that it's the logo. But also, we are so close to filming that I feel like it probably is the logo that they're using for the film. Now, the Kingdom Come logo is great. I think it's a really, 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 really cool Superman logo, a Superman crest. I always have thought it's a really cool Superman crest. It was heavily featured in Crisis on Infinite Earths with Brandon Routh's version of Superman, who was a follow-up to the Superman 1 and 2 version of the character, but it was like a much later version. We saw 2 versions of Brandon Routh using that logo in Crisis on Infinite Earths. We saw the traditional blue, red, and black one, and then we saw a red and yellow one at the very end of the crossover, which that wasn't a new suit. Actually, Mark Guggenheim was talking about this on Twitter, and somebody asked him, did he have any pictures of the yellow and red crest? And I replied, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that was just CGI. And then Mark Guggenheim replied to me and was like, yep, that's what it was. So that was pretty cool. But I do love the logo. I do think it's a really cool crest. I just don't know if it's a good crest for a first year of Superman, for our first Superman project in the DCU. Personally, I kind of would like something a little bit more classic, not necessarily the Donner crest, not necessarily the crest we see everywhere, but I think something reminiscent of 1930s, 1940s, 1950s era Superman is personally what I would have liked. Now, they might do that with this logo. I don't think they're going to use the black and red. I think it will be yellow and red, but I think they're probably also going to make some changes to that will give off a more of a classic vibe, because in general, the DCU, what we know of it so far, like the Justice League The New Frontier, feels like a very classic DC story in a sense, where it feels like it's digging into sort of the 1950s, 1960s aesthetic for the universe, and I think that that's something they really need to do, like with Metropolis, for example. Metropolis should really feel like what the 1930s thought the future would look like. I think that's always the coolest thing, and I think the DCU really needs to dig into making their cities stand out like that. So I think they're going to make some alterations to the logo that will make it look a lot more classic. But I still think, to me, the Kingdom Come crest always feels like a futuristic look for Superman. Like, this is the look he adopts much, much, much later after he became Superman. Like, we're talking 20, 30 years after becoming the hero, this is the logo, or this is the crest he's now using. Because that's what the comic is. The comic is supposed to be the original Superman, but much, much, much later. So like the original 1930s Superman after he's gotten much older. That's pretty much what Crisis on Infinite Earths did with Brandon Routh's version. They took the Christopher Reeve version of the character, and now he's much, 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 much older. He's not like, it's not like he's lost hope in the world. It's not like he's angrier. It's just this, as an older Superman, this is what he rocks now. And I think that that's really, really, really cool. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea for your first look at the character. Now, in terms of if Kingdom Come is what they're adapting, I personally do think this is just the crest. I don't think this is a hint that they're adapting Kingdom Come, but back in November 2022, right after taking over of DC Studios and right after starting DC Studios, James Gunn did tweet a major panel from Kingdom Come and said making plans, and it's the one with Superman in the middle. Now, this can allude to a lot of things. A lot of people at the time just were like, this just means he's sort of seeing himself as the architect of the new DC universe, and this is him sort of overseeing everything. That's his making plans. But now knowing that he maybe since then straight away was like, okay, we're using the Kingdom Come crest of Superman. This is the look Superman's going to be rocking in the DC universe, that maybe as soon as he came in, he was like, okay, Kingdom Come's what we're heading towards. Kingdom Come is an event we're going to be doing. Now, Kingdom Come, it's a really cool comic. I read it. I haven't read it in years, but when I did read it, I really liked it. It's kind of a story about how there's a new generation of superheroes, and it's people like Superman who kind of are retired, kind of not nearly as active as they used to be, and then there's a big accident, which it's kind of like, it always kind of reminded me of The Incredibles in a sense, where there's a new generation of superheroes that aren't as caring. They cause far more problems being superheroes than solutions. They're not fixing a whole lot, they're causing collateral damage, they're just kind of all around being problems, and it causes Superman to have to come back because he is the superhero, he's the big one, and kind of, be like, you're doing all of this wrong, you're being the wrong kind of superhero here, this isn't what it's all about. I don't think that necessarily works in a world where Superman just shows up. I think that's a really cool story if you build up to it and you make it kind of something of an end goal. Like even a film that takes place as sort of an epilogue to your overall universe is you bring the character back you make him look a lot older, you show a new generation of superheroes, you do stuff like that. That could be really cool. Now the other thing, and something that I think is kind of likely, is potentially that they're doing the storyline but in a different order. Because we know that characters like Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, we know that Mr. Terrific, we know that Hawkgirl are all going to be in Superman Legacy. James Gunn has already talked at length about how this is an already established universe. Superman's coming into a world that already has superheroes in it. And just based off of characters like Guy Gardner, stuff like that, I think that they might be going a direction of showing that these aren't the greatest superheroes. These are all the world's got, but they're not great. They're a lot more kind of not in it for the fame, but more so just in it for themselves, for bits of ego boosts, than in any attempt to actually really, really, really do good. Like they're going to save people, but it's not like they're all about not killing. They're all about doing the right thing no matter what, the way Superman is. And then Superman comes in as this whole new superhero, and he sort of changes up the dynamic where Guy Gardner's not all we've got anymore. Now we've got Superman, and he's a much more ideal version of what a Superman or what a superhero is than, say, like Guy Gardner's Green Lantern is. That could be really cool, and it could be it will be an interesting way to start off the universe by being like, there's already superheroes here. Superman shows up, and he shows them a better way. He shows them how to be better, because it straight away makes Superman have an impact on the universe, where it's like everything around him changes as soon as he shows up. this is something that I've always loved about Superman as a character, is that he is the first superhero and that everything comes from him. One of my favorite things about DC in the comics is the fact that every other time a hero shows up, they've got some kind of story or some kind of backstory where they talk about Superman being the reason why they're a superhero, or Superman being the reason why they decided to do what's right. And I think that that's always really, really, really cool. The Snyderverse sort of did this a little bit at the beginning, where they were like, Superman was a beacon to the world. But the comics, I think, handled it really well, where it's like Superman is the hero. Like, he's the first. And I was kind of hoping originally the DCU would do this, where they would have Superman be the first hero, and then have it so that everything, he inspires everything, he kickstarts the universe. But if they're doing this kind of opposite Kingdom Come thing, that's a similar thing, I guess. It's just like, we already have heroes, but Superman's the reason why they're getting better. I still think like characters like Batman being a little bit older than Superman is a bit weird for this, because in general I feel like a lot of the things that the DCU are doing are things that the DCEU or the early Snyderverse films were getting flack for doing. I think it's some of the same things. Like, people were giving out about a much older Batman than Superman. That's what the DCU is doing, not to the extent. It feels like there's only going to be like maybe a 10-year difference at most, but there's still a bit of a difference there. And also, doing a storyline like Kingdom Come so early on is something the Snyderverse was getting a lot of flack for, like doing Death of Superman so early on, doing stuff like the Nightmare stuff so early on. I feel like Kingdom Come and the Nightmare stuff, while they obviously don't go hand in hand, they're two pretty different extremes. I think that they still feel quite similar in terms of tone. So that's pretty interesting. That I like the early Snyderverse films, but I definitely don't think that stuff like the Nightmare arc or Death of Superman should have been happening so early. And I kind of feel the same here, where I'm like, I'm really excited to see this DCU, but if they're doing a sort of a mainline Kingdom Come adaptation, I think it's way too early to do that. I think that that's a really cool idea, that you get to like 4 or 5 chapters down the line. That shouldn't be your start. But we'll see. We obviously have absolutely nothing to go off of other than a logo. But that just shows how exciting it is to have new content like this. Like new Superman stuff, a new Superman is coming out, a new Superman movie. And we've got a logo, and I'm talking for 15 minutes about what that logo could mean, or what that crest could mean. Like, that's just fun. Like, that's just really, really, really exciting as comic book fans and as DC fans to finally have DC doing something like this, because it's felt for 15 years now that DC has been doing nothing but playing catch up to Marvel, and it feels like we're finally getting to a point now where DC is going to be standing on their own 2 feet and is going to be doing something impressive and doing something that we can really, really, really appreciate and be hyped for. So yeah, but how do you feel about it? Do you think it's a good crest? Do you think Kingdom Come is what the storyline's going to be? Are you excited for all of this? Or are you not excited? Are you kind of a wait and see? Which, as much as I'm excited for Superman Legacy, I am still of the mind of, for the DC universe as a whole, I want to wait and see. I don't want to get too invested in it, because I'm a little bit worried that if Superman Legacy doesn't immediately perform as well as they want it to, they'll pull the rug out from underneath this entire universe, and we'll see these projects get cancelled super quick before they can even come out, because it's Warner Brothers, and that's their thing, is when they don't think something's going to do as well as they want it to, they just cancel it, delete it, erase it, because they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that. And so excited for Superman. I can't wait to be talking more about Superman as much as possible every time anything comes out about it.